Thank you for joining. As always, fun to get on here. Today we're going to be talking about summer gardening problems, summer garden problem solving. We'll talk about some of that stuff. If you've got a summer gardening challenge you want to talk about, ask any questions about, I'll see if I can help the best I can, providing a permaculture perspective from someone who's been at this for been gardening my whole life and been at the permaculture thing for the last few decades. So thank you for joining. Talking about gardening on here. Just goof around a little bit while people are showing up. You know, it's a thing to do, yeah. Play a little song here. You know, you do permaculture. Extra time left over, now play music. Got a shade on sweet Georgia Brown. Two left feet and oh so sweet as sweet Georgia Brown. They all sigh and wanna die when she lands in town. I'll tell you just why. No, I don't lie, not much. It's been said she knocks 'em dead when she lands in town. Since she came, why it's a shame how old Georgia cools 'em down. Tell her she can't get, must be them pills that she ain't met. Georgia claimed her, Georgia named her sweet Georgia Brown. Her got a shade on sweet Georgia Brown, so she can that fever sweet Georgia Brown. They all sigh and wanna die when she lands down. I tell you just why. No, don't lie, not much. It's been said she knocks 'em dead when old Georgia comes to town. Since she came, why it's a shame how old Georgia cools 'em down. Tell her she can't get, must be the pills that she ain't met. Georgia named her, Georgia claimed her sweet Georgia Brown. I said Georgia named her, I said Georgia claimed her sweet Georgia Brown. about gardening. I'm done making noise. Make a little noise first. I don't know. How y'all doing? Thank you for joining me. How are your gardens going? How's the garden going? Oh, amazing. Good. Yeah, I'd love to hear an update about how the projects are going. Great seeing you on. So, if you have a garden question, great, lots of heat and sunshine. Now things are growing fast. That's great. You know, I find for this kind of gardening that we do, and the kind of gardening that I do, it really takes off year after year. You know, because we're gardening regeneratively in ways that actually build soil by how we garden. And because of that, we get better and better results year after year after year. Oh, the rescue remedy for the diseased tree worked? Great. Yeah, you know, that's the kind of thing that I'm happy to talk about today here. This is, you know, a lot of what we talk about in permaculture is what I was just talking about. Trying to solve these problems. Our number one strategy all the time, our number one strategy is create a healthy, diverse, abundant system by design. You get the design right, and you it gets so much easier to garden. In fact, we could say that a lot of the things that we see as problems aren't really problems at all. They're design. They're not even symptoms. They're the outcomes of the design we use. When you make a garden that's a monoculture beds, and they get invaded by pests, or they have lots of weed issues, that's nature trying to fix the problem. Nature sees a monoculture garden or a monoculture field as a problem. Because, by the way, how do you define a healthy ecosystem? What's a healthy ecosystem? Still today, the Aldo Leopold definition of a healthy ecosystem. So a great early ecologist who was really fundamental in building ecology as a real science was named Aldo Leopold. He's from Wisconsin. If you're around Wisconsin, or you get up to around the Madison area, you can go to the Aldo Leopold Center there, and it's really worth going and seeing and touring. And by the way, I will answer that other question on here too. I appreciate that question. And struggling lately, just seeing how much ecological destruction has occurred here. And that's, you know, if that itself is the cause of a lot of our problems. So a lot of us who have gardens. Now, I'm not trying to make believe that if we lived in these perfect ecosystems, there would be no pest problems. That's not true. But they tend not to get out of balance so bad. And you tend to be able to grow lots of great, beautiful produce that have very little pest and disease damage with a lot less work. There's just less, you know, the ecosystem keeps it intact. So Aldo Leopold was the first person, you know, back then they were like, well, we know what's a healthy ecosystem. Well, you see it. You can tell the difference between a healthy ecosystem and a non-healthy ecosystem. So Aldo Leopold was the first scientist to give us a definition of what a healthy ecosystem is. And it's still the basic root definition today, although it's a little bit contentious to a small segment of biologists and ecologists. Anyway, I want to see if somebody knows that, if you know what the definition, or first definition of what a healthy ecosystem was. It really comes back to how we think about it. Have I been to the Netherlands? I think they have a biodiversity center museum. I probably would. The Netherlands, a lot of Europe, France. There are some really interesting scientific studies in France. They're really, France has never been like the United States. They've maintained an ethic of having less pesticides, of not using GMOs, of maintaining the rural character, which included their hedgerows, tapestry hedges, and a lot of biodiversity, a lot of integrated nature right into the farming landscape. Lots of herbs everywhere. The wild landscapes left very floral and beautiful. So there, it's a lot different than in the United States, where we had this idea that you wanted to kill all the nature and just have corn from sea to sea, was this idea we had back before the 30s. Biomass times biodiversity is healthy ecosystem. Yeah, that's what Aldo Leopold said. Gold star to you. I would have gold star. I have like throwing stars. I could throw something at you. Or sing you another song. I don't know, you pick. What's a tapestry hedge? In France, it was just kind of a term for a traditional sort of hedgerow that was designed with beauty and utility in mind. It was just one. Now, by the way, there's a great 2-volume encyclopedia of Europe's hedge boundaries, or Europe's field boundaries. It's called European Field Boundaries. If you want to be a super huge nerd of all of like hedgerow culture of Europe and know the different planting densities, which species were prevalent and all that. And so in France, in particular, a lot of them were at least partially planted by birds and wildlife. Because what they would do, by the way, here's your first permaculture tip on creating an easy, abundant landscape for the night. That there have been hedgerows in Europe as multi-use things. They're useful for field boundaries. They're useful as an easy linear food forest system. Almost all the hedges produce lots of nuts and fruits. In a lot of cases throughout Europe, the basis of them was hazelnuts, so they can be used for forage too. Very useful things, hedgerows. And when we talk about biodiversity times biomass increasing over time, we'll get back to that in a second. I have stuff to say about that. I will talk about that. Hedgerows are one of the first and best, easiest things. There's a study about this. You can search for California research hedgerows biodiversity, something like that. And the scientists there found that one of the best things a farm could do to increase its biodiversity and increase pest and disease resistance on the farm was start having multi-species hedgerows similar to those in the European tradition. But tapestry hedges probably would have had hazel, then they would have had roses, probably something like Rosa rugosa throughout it. They might have had grapes. They would have definitely had like medlar and different fruiting trees, crab apples that were specialty culinary crab apples, blackthorn, or which is a wild pear, damson pears, these sorts of species. So they were beautiful, and they would be woven together. So that's why they get the tapestry idea. So instead of just like if you look at an American Master Gardener program idea about how to create an edible hedge, they teach you to plant the plants at research-based spacings for an orchard culture. And then in 10 years, you have a hedgerow when the plants finally grow together and they're very productive. But there's tons of problems created by that, in addition to the fact that you don't get a hedge. In the European system, they planted them really super densely and then wove the trees together so the branches actually weave together. And once every 7 years or so, they just hard cut it back to the ground. When the shrubs grow up again, they weave them back together again. So that's a tapestry hedge using those kinds of species, and they're super useful, linear food forests. And I was going to say, your first tip of the night, how they used to plant them. These have been found throughout Europe. There are examples that are thought to be 10,000 years old. 10,000 years, this has been a major food forest system of Europe. And you know how they used to be planted? They would go from dead hedge to living hedge. Think about that. You start with a dead hedge, and the dead hedge comes to life. How does that happen? How did they figure this out? 10,000 years ago, people planted dead hedges, and the dead hedges came to life. What was going on? The term regenerative agriculture, yeah, that, and we'll get back to that too. I want you all thinking about that. How does a dead hedge come to life? What were people doing 10,000 years ago? That's my great tip of the night. Hey, you recently got the book the Landscape Transformation Manual. Thank you so much. I hope you like it. I put a lot of work, especially into that book. It's a very weird book, philosophically, and it came from. I'm going to get back to all those questions. The Beginner's Landscape Transformation Manual was actually the curriculum for my summer gardening CSA program. I used to do a program where I would teach a class one day a month. We'd talk about all the foraging things. We'd talk about all these weird perennial vegetables and fruits like this thing. What is that thing back there? It looks like a COVID. Looks like a COVID virus, and you eat that. Like transplanting a dead shrub, it's kind of like that. We're going to get back to that. So I love this. So the Landscape Transformation Manual was actually the curriculum, the kind of textbook for that summer gardening program that I developed over teaching this class for 15 years. And when I was doing it, I was talking with some of the leading permaculture educators in the world and talking about what cutting edge permaculture is today. And the huge idea in permaculture right now is moving us away from just a focus on design. Because when it comes down to it, most people are never going to sit down and make a design and then carefully go through creating and enacting that design over time. It's just not how humans are. What most people do is they F around and find out, right? They go and they play around in the landscape, they try something, they add a little bit to it, they do this, they do that, they do these little projects together, right? That's what we do. That's what most people actually do. The whole permaculture curriculum, was traditionally focused on design and teaching people to sit down with a piece of paper and design something. I'm back. Hopefully I wasn't gone long. I'm back. I got cut off by TikTok. They said I've been on here too long today. Can you believe that? But real people, the whole permaculture curriculum and idea was focused on that design process. But real people didn't actually do things that way. Real people would sit around and do some projects and move towards progress. So the Beginner's Landscape Transformation Manual really captures this idea of how do we help people do that thing, F around and find out, do little projects, mess around, have fun in the landscape, and over time end up with a cogent, well-functioning, well-designed permaculture system. So the Beginner's Landscape Transformation Manual is just projects that people can do, like hedges. There's a whole thing in there, right, about the hedgerows that we're talking about here. And my own personal hedgerow design. Oh, I was never gone? Okay, good. Yeah, it says I was cut off, but I didn't go anywhere. And so that book is a weird book. and it's been poorly reviewed by some people because it's kind of weird. But it's the book that I was almost most conscientious about. Like, man, how do we talking to the leaders of modern permaculture, the greatest thinkers, the most cutting edge people who are out there doing the work, and coming up with this curriculum kind of really with those people. And a lot of people saw the book and they're like, this is weird. But it's what it was, you know. So the Key to Abundance that's out now is kind of a similar idea with less permaculture philosophy in it, without really any of the transformative permaculture stuff. And it's just the projects, it's just patterns and just garden designs that people can take. But there's a secret in them, and the secret is everything in it, in that book, is modular, so that if you do one of the gardens from the Key to Abundance, every garden design in that book is a little high functioning ecosystem. So if you just start installing those gardens, you end up hopefully over time with something very much like a really high functioning great permaculture system. Okay, there's one thing. Let's get back and answer that question. Who was the guy who invented or coined the term regenerative agriculture? It was a great American, a black educator, farm educator and farmer, one of the great farm thinkers of the 20th century, in my opinion. He was kind of a contemporary of Bill Mollison, and Bill Mollison, who coined the term permaculture, was very inspired by him. His name was Whatley, Dr. Whatley. I believe it was Booker Whatley. So look up Dr. Whatley Regenerative Agriculture, Dr. Whatley's Rules for Regenerative Agriculture. And he was working specifically with Rodale, and he strongly, but by the way, he was a university agronomist. Sometimes these days you'll run into people on the line who will say like, oh, this permaculture, regenerative agriculture, organic stuff is anti-science woo. Real scientists don't believe in that stuff. Don't believe that. Dr. Whatley was, which is Whatley, by the way. Dr. Whatley was very prolific. He was a great agronomist. He was a great agricultural scientist, and worked his whole life within the university system. And he worked with Rodale, the organic gardening organization. And he coined the term regenerative agriculture. So those things come out of a great university mind, a great scientist. So that's the answer to that. Hopefully that helps you out. And you can find him and look up he's got also another great article by Whatley is his 10 Commandments. Whatley's, look up like Dr. Whatley's Farming 10 Commandments, something like that. It's probably been a half a decade since I geeked out on Dr. Whatley. You can even find some old videos of him, just a little bit, and definitely worth looking. I want to credit him on your website. Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of a shame that people have taken the term regenerative agriculture. When Dr. Whatley coined it, what Dr. Whatley meant was he wanted an agriculture that was literally regenerative. So he wanted regenerative agriculture to be regenerative. Think about that. It's very different than regenerative agriculture today. So Dr. Whatley wanted regenerative agriculture to be regenerative to local farm economies, to farm communities. He said all this, that a truly regenerative agriculture would be regenerative to the farmers and their bank accounts. It'd be regenerative to the farming communities and rural communities and regenerate those. It would regenerate the soil, and more importantly than the soil, far more importantly than the soil, it would regenerate ecosystems and healthy ecosystems. unfortunately, my opinion is that modern day regenerative agriculture has kind of taken Dr. Watley's term that he coined and kind of turned it into what now in 2025 has really become just a new corporate buzzword for sustainability. I say that with some regrets because for a long time I think Dr. Watley was onto something. Yes, that's right. Each year the ecosystem take it back. That's right. Yeah, I try to do that too. Like when people talk about regenerative agriculture, I'm like, hey, this is real regenerative agriculture. This is some articles by the guy who coined the term. Check these out. So yeah, it's good stuff. Getting back to regeneration, one of the best regeneration projects you can do is this idea of healing the land and bringing it back to life with a dead hedge. So how dead hedging works to create food forests, and this is really pretty genius, and this is an old European kind of system. And like I said, this probably goes back 10,000 years. So what they would do isn't transplant a dead hedge. What they would do is find dead wood. They would find tree branches that had fallen, stuff like that. And where they wanted to build a hedge, they would make a sort of makeshift, very temporary sort of fence-like structure there. A dead hedge. It worked like a hedge, but it was all dead wood. How does that plant, how does that come to life? How does that come to life? You know, I've talked a lot about, it's time for another story, children. I'm going to tell you a story. My story is that I've talked about my favorite hedgerow many times. One year I was working on an organic farm, and one day after working on the organic farm, like maintaining the raspberry patch, I went for a bike ride, and I found a new bike trail near to my house where I was living at the time in McHenry County, Illinois. Birds, you got it. Anyway, at this bike trail, there was this amazing food forest there, this naturally occurring food forest that nobody had planted, but it was filled, absolutely filled, entirely with edible species. How did it get there? Because along the bike trail there were power lines. The birds perched on the power lines. The birds, where birds perch, birds poop. And what do birds eat? Birds eat tasty berries and fruits. And what do fruits do? Fruits use birds and their digestive systems as a dispersal mechanism. So by planting the dead hedge, they're making a perch. And then birds, and also part of the dead hedge, squirrels come for shelter, and squirrels bury nuts and hazelnuts in there and things like that. And so by building the dead hedge, they were creating a little tiny ecosystem, but also the bird poop fertilizes the soil and makes it a great place for this biodiversity. And the dead wood, as it falls and stuff, creates little disturbances in the grassland, little opportunities for biodiversity to start and to germinate and grow. And so they'd plant this dead hedge, and 10 years later they would have a multi-species hedge started. And then it's just a matter of picking and choosing which plants we want, which ones we want to keep, which ones we want to encourage, which ones we want to pull out. And over time you end up with a great multi-species, very diverse, very useful hedge. For free, planted by the birds. Is that Hannah? Oh my gosh. It's been so long since we talked. It's so nice to see you. You've probably heard me talk about dead hedges in my hedgerow. It's so nice to see you on here. Judge a tree by the fruit it bears. So nice. I hope you're doing great up there. I just saw some posts of yours. You know, I've been trying to stay. Actually, it's not that I've been trying to stay off Facebook. Um, I but every time I go on Facebook now, I don't know if any of you still use Facebook, but when I go on Facebook, like I'll go on Facebook, I'll be like, oh, I want to see my old friends. I want to catch up with people and see what people are up to. Well, I log on to Facebook, and like the first 10 posts that I see are advertisements for the dumbest stuff. It's like, and they know that I do farming and gardening stuff, but they give me advertisements for stuff that just makes me really mad. Just like tons of plastics and poisons and dumb stuff, and people saying dumb stuff about gardening. I look at 10 of those. It doesn't show me any posts from my friends. I get 10 advertisements for dumb stuff that drives me out of my mind, and I shut down Facebook, and I don't check it back. I don't check back for another like week. And so that's how I am on Facebook now. I'll think every time I check one, like every couple of days, I'm like, man, I want to see what Hannah's up to. I want to see what people are up to. And I go onto Facebook and it's 10 posts. I'm out of there. I am out of there. Is that right? Is that right for you guys? Exactly. Too many sponsored posts. It's like everything. It's terrible. It's so terrible. I'm glad you're seeing my stuff on TikTok. You know, I still have some videos of us that I've kept, and that maybe at some point we can talk about putting up. I hope you're doing great. Oh, I was going to tell you about one more thing. What was it? Biodiversity plus biomass times biomass. The definition of a healthy ecosystem and how it relates to what we're doing. So again, going way back, we're finally getting around to these things. This is how I keep people hooked, right? By meandering. It's completely unintentional, actually, but I do like to always get back to these things. Marketplace can be good, man. I get a lot of good stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Hey, thank you for the roses. I appreciate that. I appreciate all those gifts. I appreciate y'all. I will finish. I will finish with this question, Ellie. How to make a career out of this, ways to do that, things you might want to study, what a direction to go in would be. So yeah, I'll get back to that too. So a healthy ecosystem, although Leopold said, he gave us the first definition, and as somebody already said, somebody who's clever and knew this, his definition was an ecosystem that is increasing in biodiversity and biomass. So right up until, an apex old growth forest, eventually an ecosystem will stop increasing in biodiversity and biomass and hit a steady state. And that's still a healthy ecosystem. Up to that point, his measure was if a system is increasing in biodiversity and biomass. Now, one of the most valid critiques of that today is that sometimes, and this, by the way, people who are permaculture geeks, this is something that not enough people in the permaculture movement talk about, or the regenerative agriculture movement. There's a feeling within our movements that is very Aldo Leopold, that we're always trying to increase the biodiversity and biomass of every ecosystem, right? And so there's this idea, what's the first thing you do when you move onto a property? You build amazing soil, you regenerate the soil, you make everything great, beautiful, perfect soil, right? The first thing that we should do is take care of the soil. Yeah, and some species need depleted, degraded soils in order to thrive. Some species need degraded and depleted ecosystems to thrive. Some species require desert for their niche in order to survive. So the theory is today, the best theories, in my personal opinion, is that although Leopold was still right, if you look on a big enough radius, but within that, within a large area, we still need some spaces which are degraded ecosystems on degraded soils, because that improves and increases the overall biodiversity and biomass of the whole system. So, so within that idea, we need things like deserts. Deserts can increase biodiversity and global biodiversity, and hence biomass too. So, what's that? I miss some your poor soil buddies. Yeah, there's a lot of edibles in that category. There sure are. That's great definition. The pine plantations. Yeah, absolutely. And and this is the thing. So this is what I was talking about. We're talking about weeds and pest problems, and why. You see where I'm going with this? You see where I'm going with this very long-winded story? I started this by saying almost everything that you and I consider problems in our gardens are actually nature's solutions. They're nature trying to fix the problems created by humans. So when nature sees a monoculture of pine trees, or nature sees a monoculture of corn, or nature sees a bed that's all tomatoes or whatever, and nature sees that monoculture, nature is like, damn, that needs some more biodiversity and biomass. Nature can heal that. Nature can improve that soil with weeds. Nature can improve this biodiversity by having some pest species kill some of those tomatoes, so there's more room for other species to be in there. Nature is actually trying to fix that. So when we have a garden and the garden has lots of bare soil and the garden doesn't have a lot of biodiversity, nature wants to fix our problem and help us out and do us a solid by increasing the biomass and biodiversity so that we have a healthier garden. And nature's way of doing that is weeds and pests. So the pine beetle outbreaks, absolutely. When we look at that, we could say, man, the pine beetle outbreaks are a big problem. The pine beetle outbreaks are nature trying to fix the problem of an unhealthy ecosystem that is a pine monoculture. So this is how we end up really going to war with nature, because nature wants to move things in the direction of increasing biomass, increasing biodiversity that's healthy. By the way, this is a good time to remember the key strategy to ecological gardening is what's called the biodiversity resiliency principle, which is really well documented by ecologists and by science. And the idea is that that states that the greater number of species there are in an ecosystem, the greater resilience to pests and disease are conferred to the individuals in that system. So nature isn't just trying to solve the problem from nature's perspective. Nature is trying to make you and me healthier by adding weeds and pest species to our gardens and to our landscapes. And Hannah on here can tell you how much about weeds and how health enhancing. She's an herbalist, and anybody who studied herbalism can tell you about how much weeds are health enhancing for humans. So nature's just trying to solve the problem. Your problem, my problem, the ecosystem's problems. So the more we can figure out how to meet our goals while working with that, increasing biodiversity and biomass within our own systems, then nature has to do less of that, and we get to plan what that biodiversity and biomass looks like. Hey there, how's it going? Glad to see you, glad you joined. Anyway, my battery's actually going to die soon. So very happy to see you all on here. Thank you for listening to me talk. Well, so what did we talk about here? We talked about I said I was going to talk about one more thing. Tips on how to go about having a career in this sort of thing and healing ecosystems. That is, I'm going to give you unconventional advice in 2025. The unconventional advice I'm going to give you is that university biology departments and biograds, and especially for people who want to do truly positive things, healing ecosystems, working as conservation managers for real, healing the earth, and healing ecosystems and stewarding biodiversity. That's what you want to do, right? It's very, very difficult to do that through a conventional path. The reason why is because universities have kind of bought into the idea that what universities are about is getting a job. And the way our system is set up, they've really bought into the idea that where the money is at and where they should position their students to be able to take advantage of the money is with big agribusiness, which also means pesticides and things like that. So a lot of what people are taught, if you just want to get like a bachelor's degree in biology and go get a job, is essentially how to be a salesperson or a professional applier, a professional user of pesticides and herbicides. And not to say that there's not sometimes good uses for those things, but they're way dramatically overused. The way our whole system is set up is all geared towards buying corporate products, herbicides and pesticides, and spraying them on problems, which is very much not what we were just talking about. So university ecology departments, if you go to a place, now there are two kinds of university biology departments. And this is something most people are not going to talk to you about. I'm going to talk to you about this. And by the way, my neighbor on my block here, who sometimes catches me on here, maybe he's watching right now, used to run the Master Gardener program in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and he was a scientist. At Purdue Fort Wayne. And he will say the exact same thing, that some universities have simply really, really strongly bought into this idea. They've really sold out their whole science wings, their research wings, to big agribusiness. Almost all the research they're doing is geared towards that. And this is nothing against the scientists. It's not that they're being unethical or anything like that. It's just, but if your paycheck requires you to believe in something, then you're probably going to believe in it. At least have more of a tendency to. And if all of the research that's getting funded is about using pesticides, that's what research are going to be doing. So then there are a few very, very prestigious biology departments that are very different. Cornell is one, Oberlin is one. Oregon State University is a really mixed bag. Oregon State University has some of the most forward-thinking, programs and professors coexisting with some of the absolutely most passionately, devoutly pro-corporate, pro-pesticide scientists out there. So that's what you're going to get. Is very true. People know where the bread is buttered. It's just how it is. Yeah. Andrew Millison is there, 100%. And it's so funny because the head of their horticulture department hates that dude. She hates permaculture. She hates permaculture. Flames on the side of her head. Um, and so she can't stand that there's a permaculture department at Oregon State University, her own university. Um, yeah, I was exactly the same. I actually heard about permaculture first, and I was already working in farming fields and things. I wanted to get back into gardening, and I was thinking that I wanted to do something in this world professionally and make a living in it. And one of the first things I did was sign up for a Master Gardener program. And I remember the very first class I went to, just from the timing of the season, was about home orcharding. And the professor who was teaching that part was actually was the IPM specialist at that university. It was in McHenry County again. And he said, so it was it must have been someone from the University of Illinois. And he said, the first thing you have to understand about growing fruit at home is that it's impossible to grow fruit without a weekly spray schedule. Forget it. Forget about growing fruit if you're not going to, forget about having a home orchard if you don't like pesticides. Period. Done. That's the first thing you need to know. And I was like, okay, I think I'm done. I'm going to take off now. So the square foot gardening book is so good. It's so good. Yeah, and by the way, if you ever hear that, my current one in Indiana is the same way. They're very passionately pro pesticide. And so what I'm going to say is, if you're going to go a conventional route and go through school, there are opportunities and there are places, but there's so much less funding for people who want to do it organically and who want to actually heal ecosystems and who want to take a research-based best practice way in 2025, which is a very different paradigm than the mainstream American approach of spray everything with pesticides. But most of the big state schools, especially in the Midwest, man, we are chemical company cities. Michigan State University, Purdue is one of the absolute worst. The University of Illinois is pretty good. University of Illinois, where I was at, was pretty good. University of Wisconsin, totally mixed bag. Some very progressive people are still allowed to be there. Oberlin, Cornell, Florida State University is kind of a mixed bag, but there's some really interesting science happening there. So get to know the departments. If you're going to go to school and you want to go to school and you really want to be a part of the future and the solutions and not just get indoctrinated into the status quo that is harming the planet, then make sure that the department you're going to has those critics. Make sure that it's not a department where they're going to laugh at you if you even start to have this conversation. And thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad. Thank you. And so my last thing that I would say is then, if we need people to figure out alternatives to learn how to get back on the land and to live with the land and make a living out of doing this stuff and regenerating landscapes. I believe there are a lot of opportunities to do this. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's easy. You have to be clever. It usually takes time. If you want, people want to try to do this thing, and they think the first thing they're going to do is start an annual vegetable garden. And once they have that annual vegetable garden set up, it's so hard to do permaculture and to transition to creating a truly healthy ecosystem, because the second you start to do that, you're losing profit. So you have to start with the thinking that you're going to invest long-term in building a social support network, get involved, Another thing that Hannah does that's really interesting is she's got a big diverse friend group, and she gets involved in other things. Like I hope we get talk about that. She's been involved in dancing and all these other things. And the more you connect with people and build yourself that sort of personal support network, the more easy it becomes. And the more you build the ecosystem so that it produces lots of stuff. I really do believe, and I've been close to it now several times, I'm pretty close again, the more you can set up your life so that you're like a forest elf, who just, or a bog witch. And what you do is you wander around the bog in the forest, and you pick the things that grow wild, because you've planned the forest and designed the forest to produce these things. And maybe you learn how to turn them into really cool value added products that you can also sell. And to me, if you really, really want to be a part of that future and the future way of doing things, then trying to figure out how to move towards that path and learn the skills that you need to learn to do that is the way to go. Trying to do woofing. I've learned so much by woofing, working on small organic farms, going to tour, talk to people who are doing permaculture. Try to build some specific skills that are high value. Hedge laying, how to make crafts, how to turn forest products into crafts, how to be a really good cook, how to make really amazing jams and things like that, how to pickle and make amazing pickles from weird stuff like these. I asked what those were earlier before. These are kusa berries. Kusa berries. Yeah, you have to talk to people. Hey, you know what? No. I'm not going to tell anybody that you have to talk to humans. What you need, though, is you need to be adopted by an extrovert who likes to talk to humans. See, that's it. You got to think ecosystem. You got to think ecosystem and biodiversity. You make yourself a guild. When I plant a garden, I don't just plant corn in that garden, do I? I plant species that take care of the corn, and I make a guild so that the ecosystem cooperates. What you need is a guild. You need an ecosystem of people who will cooperate with you. So maybe you find that person in your social world and your community who's that amazing community builder, who's a great social person, who's surrounded by that whir of energy and people who are interested, and you figure out how to make that person adopt you. You find the one who also loves gardening and fresh produce, and you be friends with that person, and you get involved in their community, and you bring them fresh produce, and hopefully they bring you lots of people. That's what you do. Then you don't have to talk to people, they talk to the people for you. Daylily capers, amazing. Yeah, all of these sorts of things, man. And then you got to be resilient enough. You got to be really careful with your finances and how you structure your life so that you have the resilience to do lots of these little things. Pickle some cool things. Go foraging for cool things. I once sold a whole bunch of these to a restaurant, and they used them. And I didn't pickle them. I soaked them in booze. We soaked them in booze. I let a restaurateur try them and made these into like little these kusa berries, boozy kusa berries, and they use them to garnish drinks because they're so wild looking. I once sold like thousands of dollars of these to somebody by doing foraging. So, oh, see, there you go. And so that would be my thing. Fall in love with it. Fall in love with little different parts of this. Be really realistic with yourself about what actually can pay and what can't. It's probably not going to be straight up vegetable farming and vegetable gardening. Almost nobody actually makes money doing that. Finance is the weak link in permaculture right now. We need more of those people. I 100% agree. And that's why, if you're interested in that topic, I got together with 4 other people who I think are doing it right and who are creating livelihoods and finding ways to be resilient and finding ways to be off-grid as people and do permaculture. And that book is called Growing Free. It's one of my books. It's written with 4 other people. Yeah, I think that a land flipping kind of business model, like this is, you have to be really careful about things like flipping too, because we don't, because we definitely don't want to be involved in something that drives up land prices, makes land access harder. But there are absolutely ways to do it. And especially like in urban environments, my last few houses have all been things like I bought this place I'm living in now for $30,000. and it's an acre in an urban core with 2 houses and a big ass garage on it for $30,000. And I'm fixing it up. And when I'm done with it, hopefully it will be a healthy ecosystem and restored. So we're not, again, when I told you before, real regenerative agriculture doesn't just regenerate the soil. Real regenerative agriculture, according to Watley, regenerates economies. Watley even talked about it setting the goals to regenerate the structures on the place. We're regenerating communities. We're regenerating housing stock. This house would have been dozer bait. If I hadn't bought this house, they would have bulldozed it, and it probably would have turned into a stupid high-rise apartment, ate up this land, done all of that. So there are opportunities for things like this for permaculturists who want to find these opportunities and invest in them and think about investing. You can use money with regenerative agriculture, but you cannot use capitalism. Yet that's a really great way of saying it. That's a really great way of saying it. As soon as you're thinking, I'm going to define that in a very specific way. As soon as your mindset is about exploiting the land for profit or exploiting people for profit, then you're going to be not doing something regenerative. You're doing something extractive that makes the community and the land and the soil less well off. So we have to have a different way of thinking. We could replace the whole idea that I don't like. People get so upset and confused, arguing about outdated terms from the late 1700s, 1800s. Socialism, communism, capitalism. Most people don't even know what these words mean to them. And they're all outdated. They're outdated philosophies and theories from before there were computers and information technology and our modern housing system and all of that. What we need to be thinking about is a regenerative economy. We need to build a regenerative economy, and we can do that in ways that make us happy and healthy and build true wealth for us, and that can build true security and build great, beautiful ways of living. And so I really appreciate that whole discussion. Post-capitalism has not been named yet. 100%. Maybe what we're going to have. So this idea, by the way, there's a beautiful word I do love. So when humans build things, they degenerate, right? Ecosystems always naturally, as we were saying earlier, if you've been watching me this whole time, I feel like we've gone on a great philosophical trip. Ecosystems grow in health by growing in biodiversity and biomass and abundance, right? So every ecosystem, if left to its own devices, is going to continue to not just regenerate, but to exhibit negative entropy. So instead of losing value and losing organization and losing wealth, they increase naturally in those things over time. And a great word for that is negative entropy, negentropy, or syntropy. Syntropy is this idea that nature naturally increases and grows in health and wealth. And if we were smart, we design our economies and our lives and our livelihoods so that they also use this power of nature to grow in health and wealth and abundance over time. Yes. Gift economics is something that we should absolutely be talking about a lot more in permaculture and on TikTok. And I feel like we've had a great conversation. Thank you so much for having this great conversation with me. I appreciate you. And I hope to see you next time. Hey everybody, by the way, if I just do want to mention, if you don't have The Key to Abundance yet and you want to get that book, and you want to get some plants, if you don't have walking onions, right now I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm doing. We don't have them on TikTok because TikTok closed my store. I'm still trying to figure out how to get it up going again. So TikTok closed my store, but I'm selling them on my personal store. So you can find my link tree, my webpage, transformativeadventures.org. If you go to transformativeadventures.org, go to my store, you'll see a deal on the book. It's a really, really good deal. I'm telling you about it because it's a really good deal, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud to be shipping people these things. So if you don't have right now we're shipping in a package with the book, walking onions, the japonica corn or maize, skirt seeds. Those three things are going in every order. And then one of my favorite greens, the big leaf shungiku, which is a beautiful edible chrysanthemum that features in all of my gardens these days because it's a beautiful flower and a really, really great salad green, and it self-sows very abundantly. I have some sea kale seeds. If there's something specifically that I've talked about that you want, you can leave me a note and I'll try to honor all of those. But basically I'm shipping these packages with 4 or 5 packages of seeds, probably easily worth $30. And for the shipping, it's probably worth $68, $70. And I'm selling it for like $55 without added shipping. So it's really, really good deal. I'm very proud. I always really load up the seed packages too with lots of seeds, probably more than you'd get from somebody else. And they're all seeds directly from my garden. So check that out if you want that. If you're looking for some of those plants, check that out. What else do I got? That's it. That's all I got tonight. Thanks so much for joining me, and have a great night, everybody. Hey, you got walking onions from my page? I'm glad. I hope they're doing great. I hope they'll... Will I play a song to end the live? Yeah. Let's see. What do I play here? Something a little down tempo here. Georgia, a song for you, coming sweet and clear as moonlight on the pine. Georgia, this is your song. It's that old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Other arms reach out to me, other lips smile tenderly, still and peaceful dreams I see, the road leads back to you. Georgia, your song is that old sweet song, keeps Georgia on my mind, keeps Georgia on my mind. Thanks, everybody.